My money, my rules, my wife said at dinner. I just smiled and stopped paying the bills. A week later, the landlord was already demanding $680. And that was only the beginning. My wife's promotion immediately went to her head, but I never imagined she would announce new household rules during Sunday dinner with her parents. I am the one providing for this family now. My money, my rules, she declared, putting down her fork with the confidence of someone who had just solved world hunger. I looked around the table. Her mother nodded in approval. Her father shifted uncomfortably in his chair. As for me, I simply started clapping. Congratulations on your provider power, I said with a smile that must have seemed sincere to everyone. She beamed as if I had just crowned her queen of the universe. What she did not realize was that I had been keeping mental accounts of our family finances for years. Every contribution, every bill, every expense that kept our home running smoothly. You see, when we got married 5 years ago, we agreed on a partnership. She took care of the mortgage payments and the groceries. I covered the rent we still owed on our old apartment, the child care for our twin daughters, the monthly support we send to her parents, our vacation fund, the utilities, and a good dozen other expenses that somehow never factored into her provider calculations. Her new position at the marketing agency came with a 40% raise, and suddenly, she was earning more than me. That was excellent news in itself until she started treating it like a transfer of power rather than a blessing for the family. And what exactly does that imply? I asked, cutting into my steak. It means I make the financial decisions now. The big purchases, the vacation destinations, how we budget everything since I bring in the majority of the income. I get the majority say. Her mother even applauded. Finally, someone who understands how a marriage should work. I nodded thoughtfully, taking another bite. That makes perfect sense. The person who provides should indeed give the orders. The satisfaction on her face was almost comical. She expected resistance, arguments, maybe even a fight. Instead, she got total agreement from her husband, and it felt like a victory. Over the next few days, she began implementing her new system. She bought a new couch without consulting me, booked an expensive spa weekend with her friends, and even changed our family phone plan to something that cost twice as much but had features we did not need. I think we should discuss these things, I mentioned after the couch was delivered. Discussing implies we are equals in these decisions. That is no longer the case. I provide, I decide. That is when I realized she was not just drunk on her new salary. She genuinely believed that making more money gave her the right to treat me like a junior partner in my own marriage. She had forgotten that a partnership is not just about who brings home the biggest paycheck. But I had not forgotten anything, especially not the exact amount I paid monthly to keep her little kingdom running. Every automatic payment, every transfer, every check I wrote was documented in my head like a perfectly organized spreadsheet. She wanted to be the sole provider. She wanted to make all the rules based on her financial contributions. Perfect. I was about to give her exactly what she asked for, and I had a feeling she was going to hate every minute of it. The beautiful thing about her new philosophy was that it worked both ways. If the person who provides has the right to make the rules, then logically the person who stops providing should be able to withdraw completely from their responsibilities. I started calculating that night. The monthly rent contribution, the child care for the 2 girls, the support for her parents, the vacation fund, the utilities, the phone plan, and the insurance premium I covered. The numbers added up quickly. She had declared herself the provider and established that money equaled power in our household. It was time to find out exactly how much power she really wanted to handle. The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I made a complete list of all the financial obligations I managed monthly. Not just the obvious ones, but every automatic payment, every recurring expense, every contribution that disappeared from my account so seamlessly that even I sometimes forgot they existed. $680 for the remaining rent on the old apartment, $1,020 for the girls' daycare at Little Scholars Academy, $340 to her parents because her father's disability benefits were not enough, $255 to our joint savings for vacations, $128 for my half of the electricity bill, $77 for the family Netflix, Disney Plus, and the streaming subscriptions she loved, $160 for car insurance for both vehicles. The list went on. When I finished my calculations, I stared at the number on my phone screen. $2,195 per month, not counting random expenses like school supplies, birthday gifts for the family, or contributions to the emergency fund that I made when unexpected bills popped up. My wife was strutting around the house like she had invented money itself, but she was covering maybe 60% of our actual expenses at most. Her big provider salary paid the mortgage, the groceries, and her personal shopping splurges. Everything else was my department, apparently invisible to her new financial worldview. "I think we should redo the kitchen," she announced Tuesday morning, scrolling through Pinterest while drinking the coffee I had bought. "Something modern. Open concept. How much are we talking?" "I am talking about $12,750, maybe $17,000 if we do it right." I nodded as if that made perfect sense. "Sounds expensive. That is the whole point of earning a provider salary." She spent the week acting as if she had been promoted to CEO of our family. She booked dinners at restaurants without checking if I was available. She bought new furniture for the girls' room and had it delivered on a day I had planned to take them to the park. She even signed us up for a more expensive gym membership because the current one was not fancy enough for her new status. Every decision came with the same justification. "I provide for the needs of this family. That is what providers do." I watched it all unfold with the patience of someone who knew exactly where this was heading. She was so focused on flexing her new financial muscles that she had completely forgotten about mine. Thursday evening, she came home with bags from Target, Nordstrom, and a boutique I had never heard of. "New wardrobe for work," she explained, spreading the clothes out on our bed. "Appearances matter when you are in a provider role." "Absolutely," I agreed. "Image is everything." Friday night, she suggested we hire a cleaning service. "I am too busy with my new responsibilities to deal with cleaning. Providers should not be scrubbing toilets." "That makes perfect sense. Providers have more important things to focus on." She devoured every word, completely unaware that I was a little too enthusiastic in my agreement. Her mother called that weekend, and I listened to her brag about how her husband supported her in her new family role. "He completely understands that income determines authority," she told her mother while I was in the kitchen. Finally, a man who knows how a modern marriage should work. Sunday afternoon, while she was at her expensive spa day, I sat down with my laptop and opened my banking app. Every automatic payment, every scheduled transfer, every recurring expense I had managed for years was listed in neat rows. I started with the smallest ones: the streaming services, the magazine subscriptions, the premium grocery delivery service she loved but never paid for. One by one, I canceled the automatic payment authorizations. Then I moved on to the bigger items: the daycare payment scheduled for the following Friday, the rent contribution due on the 1st, the monthly support to her parents that usually went out on the 15th. I did not cancel anything permanently. I just deleted the automatic payments and transferred the money to a separate account I had opened that morning. Every dollar she had decided she no longer needed my help with was going to stop flowing automatically into our shared responsibilities. She wanted to be the sole provider. She wanted to make unilateral decisions based on financial power. Perfect. It was time to find out exactly how much providing she was really ready to take on. When she came home from her spa day, radiant and relaxed, I had mapped it all out. She was going to fully experience her new role as a provider, starting with next week's bills. No arguments, no discussion, no drama, just pure logical consistency with the rules she herself had established. The first test arrived exactly 1 week later, on a Tuesday morning. She was rushing to get ready for work when her phone buzzed with a text from our old landlord. "That is weird," she muttered, reading the message. "He says we are late on the $680 payment for this month on the old apartment." I looked up from my coffee. "Really? I'm curious to see how you will handle that. That is so weird. Did you forget to transfer the money?" "No, I did not forget anything. I simply did not transfer it." She stopped doing her makeup and turned to me. "What do you mean you did not transfer it?" "Exactly what I said. I did not make the payment this month." "Why not?" I put down my mug and gave her the same patient smile I had been wearing all week. "Because you are the provider now. You make the financial decisions, you manage the family expenses. Remember?" Her mouth fell open slightly, then closed. "That is not what I meant." "What exactly did you mean?" "I meant the big decisions, the vacations, the furniture, the big purchases. So, you want to be the provider for the fun expenses, but not for the boring ones." She started to answer, then stopped. Even she could hear how that sounded. Look, we agreed on certain arrangements. You pay some things, I pay others. Actually, you are the one who established new arrangements. You said, my money, my rules. You said that being a provider means making the financial decisions. I am just following your logic. This is ridiculous. Just make the payment. From which account? My personal money? Because according to you, it is no longer family money. It is just my money, and I have the right to decide how to spend it. The silence stretched between us as she digested this. Her provider confidence was meeting reality for the first time, and reality was not very cooperative. Okay, she finally said. I will take care of it this month, but we need to discuss this tonight. Absolutely. Providers should definitely discuss their financial decisions. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, muttering something about communication that I pretended not to hear. That evening, she came home armed with talking points she had clearly rehearsed all day. We need to go back to our original arrangement. She started before I could even ask her how her day went. What arrangement? You know what I mean. The way we divided the expenses before. Before what? She took a deep breath, clearly trying to stay patient. Before my promotion changed our income dynamic. Oh, you want to go back to the partnership model? Exactly. But yesterday you said partnerships do not work when income levels are unequal. You said the person who provides should make the decisions. I was not talking about every bill. Which bills were you talking about? She looked at me as if I was being deliberately obtuse. I meant the unimportant ones. So you were saying you want to be the provider for some expenses, but not for others? Like, you will provide for the fun stuff, but I should still handle the boring utility bills. That is not what I am saying. Then what are you saying? She slumped heavily onto her new couch, the one she had bought without asking me. I am saying we should both contribute according to our abilities. That sounds reasonable. So you will contribute according to your ability, and I will contribute according to mine. Yes, perfect. So as the provider, you can handle the rent payment. That fits perfectly within your ability. The frustration on her face was beautiful to watch. She wanted to go back to the old system where I managed the boring expenses while she played provider with the exciting purchases. But she could not say it without admitting that her whole my money, my rules speech was just about getting her way on shopping decisions. That is not what I meant, and you know it. Help me understand what you meant then. I meant that I should have more say in the big financial decisions because I make more now. And you should. As the provider, you decide how much you want to provide. If the rent is not worth providing for, that is your choice as the provider. She rubbed her temples as if she had a headache. Can you please just make the payment so we do not get in trouble with the landlord? I already told you I do not make those decisions anymore. You are the provider. Providers provide. Thursday morning brought another text from the landlord, this one less friendly. She showed me her phone with a panic that suggested she had never dealt with angry creditors before. He says if we do not pay by Friday, he is applying late fees and reporting it to the credit bureaus. Sounds serious. What is your plan? My plan? It is our credit score. Really? Because according to you, financial decisions are made by the provider. So it is the provider's credit score, the provider's responsibility, and the provider's problem to solve. She transferred the $680 that afternoon, but I could see the lesson was just starting to sink in. She wanted the authority without the responsibility, the power without the obligations. Friday night, she was quieter than usual during dinner. The girls chattered about their day at school, but her mind was clearly elsewhere. Something bothering you? I asked. Just thinking about money stuff. Provider problems. She shot me a glare that could have melted steel. Are you really enjoying this? Enjoying what? I am just respecting the rules you set. You said providers make the decisions. So I am letting you provide and decide. Next month, there might be other things that need providing for. The realization hit her like a bucket of cold water. She was starting to understand that being a provider was not just about having authority over fun purchases. It was about providing for everything. And we were only at the beginning. The second week of her provider education began Monday morning with a call from Little Scholars Academy. She answered while making breakfast, and I watched her face go from sleepy confusion to wide-awake panic. What do you mean our payment was declined? She shot me a look across the kitchen. Yes, I will call you right back. Daycare issue? I asked, buttering my toast with deliberate calmness. They say our payment was rejected. $1,020 for this month. That is strange. Did you set up the new payment method? New payment method? Well, since you are the provider now, I assumed you would want to directly manage the girl's childcare. You know, provider responsibility. She looked at me like I had just announced I was moving to Mars. You did not pay for daycare. I transferred that money to my personal savings. Providers should manage their own family expenses. No, this is crazy. The girls need daycare, so we can both work. Absolutely. That is why it is so important that the provider handles it correctly. I never said I wanted to pay for daycare. You said you wanted to make the financial decisions for the family. Childcare seems like a pretty fundamental family expense. She grabbed her phone and started scrolling through her banking app, probably calculating if she could cover $1,020 on top of everything else. The math was not in her favor, and we both knew it. I am transferring the money this time, but we are going to have a real conversation tonight. Of course, providers need to clearly communicate their decisions. That afternoon, while she was dealing with daycare payments and late fees, her mother called me directly. What is this I hear about you no longer contributing to the household expenses? I contribute exactly as much as the provider wants me to contribute. Do not play games with me. She is upset that she has to cover the bills you use to manage. She established that the person who earns more should make the financial decisions. I am respecting her authority. That is not what she meant, and you know it. Maybe she should clarify what she meant. Communication is important in a provider relationship. Her mother hung up on me, which I took as a good sign that the message was getting through. Wednesday brought the next test. Her father called during dinner, and I could hear his voice through the phone, even from across the table. The support payment did not go through this month. Your mother has been sick with worry over the electric bill. She looked at me with a desperation that was becoming familiar. We can talk about this later, Dad. I will call you back. After she hung up, the silence stretched out until our girls asked if they could watch TV in the living room. $340, she said once we were alone. That is what your parents need monthly. Yes, I have been sending it for 2 years. I contributed that amount when we were partners. But providers manage their own family obligations. They are your parents, and you are the provider making the financial decisions for your family. She pushed the food around her plate without eating. I cannot afford rent, daycare, support for my parents, and everything else on top of my regular expenses. Sounds like a budgeting challenge. Providers face those all the time. Stop calling me the provider like it is a joke. You announced it at Sunday dinner in front of your parents. You said providing gives you authority. I am just acknowledging the role you chose. Friday afternoon, her father called me at work. What kind of man stops supporting his wife's elderly parents? The kind of man whose wife has declared herself the sole financial provider for the family. That is not how a marriage works. According to your daughter, that is exactly how a modern marriage works. The person with more money makes the decisions and manages the expenses. She was not talking about her parents' bills. She said family expenses. Her parents are part of the family. He started to argue, then seemed to realize he was trapped by his own daughter's logic. Is this going to cause problems? It already has. She is learning that being a provider involves more than spending money on whatever you want. That weekend, she sat at the kitchen table with her laptop, a calculator, and what looked like a migraine. The bills were spread across the surface like a financial crime scene. I need your help with the math, she admitted without looking up. I am happy to help. What are you calculating? How much it really costs to run this household every month. That is smart provider planning. She glared at me, but continued. The mortgage is $1,870. Groceries are around $1,100. Insurance, utilities, my car payment, credit card. That is already $3,485. Sounds correct so far. Add daycare, rent for the old apartment, my parents' support, the vacation fund, and all the little things you use to cover. She stared at the calculator screen. $5,780 a month. Wow, providing is expensive. I bring home $4,420 after taxes. Sounds like a provider math problem. She closed the laptop and looked directly at me for the first time in days. I cannot afford to be the sole provider. But you said the person who earns more should have the authority. I still think that is fair for the big decisions. Define big. Vacations, major purchases, home improvements. But daycare is $12,700 a year. That is different. How? She could not answer without admitting she wanted authority over the spending, but not responsibility for the necessities. Her provider fantasy was clashing with provider reality, and reality was winning. Sunday evening, her mother called back. This time she put her on speakerphone. "Your father and I discussed it. Maybe you two should see a counselor for these money issues." My wife looked at me hopefully, as if counseling could reset everything back to before her promotion went to her head. "I think that is an excellent idea," I said. "The provider should definitely get professional help to manage all her new financial responsibilities." By the third week, desperation had completely replaced her provider confidence. She started every morning checking our bank balances like someone expecting bad news, which she usually found. Tuesday morning brought a call from her parents' electric company. Past due warning. Final notice before disconnection. "You have to help me," she said, holding the phone with shaking hands. "They're going to cut off my parents' electricity. Sounds like a provider emergency." Stop. Stop with this provider nonsense. I need $340 today, or my dad's medical equipment will stop working. That is serious. What is your plan? I do not have an extra $340. I am already overdrawn on 2 accounts trying to keep up with everything. She looked genuinely scared, which was a first. The woman who had declared her financial authority 3 weeks earlier was now begging for help with basic bills. "Maybe you could cut back on some expenses," I suggested. "That premium gym membership, the high-end car wash service, the organic meal delivery. That is barely $170 total. The kitchen remodel you were planning? I canceled it last week. Spa days are canceled too." She had quietly dismantled her provider lifestyle piece by piece, but it was not enough to cover the real expenses she had inherited with her new role. "I am going to be completely honest with you," she said, sitting across from me. "I messed up. I had no idea how much you were contributing to this family. $2,195 a month, not counting emergencies and extras. I know. I added it up several times." "So what are you asking me?" "I'm asking if we can go back to how it was before." "Before what?" "Before I said that stupid stuff about providers making the rules." "You mean when we were partners?" "Yes, exactly that." I let the silence settle while she waited for my answer. She needed to understand that partnerships do not survive ultimatums and power plays. Partners do not declare themselves sole providers. I finally said, "I know. Partners do not establish authority based on the size of a paycheck. I know that too. Partners do not brush off each other's contributions as insignificant." "You are right. I was completely wrong." This time, she meant it. The arrogance was gone, replaced by genuine remorse and a healthy dose of financial panic. Wednesday evening, she came home with a printout of our complete financial situation. Every expense, every contribution, every bill we had been splitting for years. "I want to show you something," she said, spreading the papers on the dining table. "Look at this breakdown." She had color-coded everything. Green for the expenses she covered, blue for mine, yellow for the shared costs we split equally. 63% of the household expenses were your responsibility," she said softly. I was covering 37% and calling myself the provider. The math does not lie. No, it does not. And I was lying to myself about how partnerships really work. Thursday brought another crisis. The vacation fund we were building for our trip to Disney World was completely empty. She had pulled money from it to cover the bills I had stopped paying. "The girls are going to be devastated," she said, staring at the zero balance. "We promised them this trip for Christmas. Providers have to make tough choices about family priorities. Please, stop punishing me. I understand. I was wrong about everything. This is not a punishment. It is an education. You wanted to understand what providing really means. I understand now." "Really?" "Because 3 weeks ago you thought being a provider meant having authority over spending decisions. Now you are discovering that providers have to make sacrifices, manage stress, and disappoint family members when money is tight." She nodded, looking completely defeated. Friday afternoon, her mother showed up at our house unannounced. She walked into the kitchen where we were both sitting with our laptops, reorganizing our budget. "This has gone on long enough," she announced. "Your father and I raised you better than to let pride destroy your marriage." "Mom, please." "No. I am not going to stand by while you call me crying every night because you cannot afford to take care of your own parents after creating this mess with your big provider speech." My wife's face turned red. Her mother's tough love was hitting its mark. "You got a promotion and decided that made you your husband's boss. Now you are learning that being the boss means taking on the responsibilities, not just reaping the privileges. I already admitted I was wrong. Admitting you were wrong to me does not fix anything. You need to admit you were wrong to your husband and mean it enough to never bring up this provider nonsense again. Her mother turned to me. And you have made your point. Do you think she really understands now? Look at her. She has been surviving on coffee and stress for weeks, trying to cover bills she didn't even know existed. She understands. That evening, after her mother left, we sat in the living room while the girls played upstairs. I need to say something, and I need you to really listen, she started. I am listening. When I got that promotion, it felt like a validation for all the years I had worked so hard. But instead of being grateful that we could improve our family's situation together, I turned it into some kind of competition between us. That is what it felt like to me. I brushed off everything you bring to this family. I acted like your money was less important because there was less of it. I tried to turn our partnership into a hierarchy with me at the top. You did. And when I had to face what that really entailed, I could not handle it. I wanted the authority without the responsibility. I wanted to be the provider for the fun decisions, but not for the boring bills. That is not how providing works. No, it is not. Real providing means sacrificing your own wants for the needs of your family. It means staying up late worrying about bills. It means disappointing yourself so you do not disappoint the people you love. She was finally getting it. Providing is not about power or authority. It is about responsibility and sacrifice. I want to be your partner again, she said. Not your boss, not your provider, not your dependent. Your equal partner. What does that look like? It looks like both of us contributing according to our abilities and making decisions together. It looks like respecting what each person brings to the family, whether it is money, time, or support. Can you handle that when your paycheck is bigger than mine? My paycheck does not make me more important than you. It just makes me responsible for a larger share of our expenses. For the first time in 3 weeks, that sounded like something I could work with. The final lesson came the following Sunday, exactly 1 month after her original provider declaration. Her parents had invited us to dinner, and I could see she was nervous about facing them after the financial chaos of the last few weeks. Before we go, she said, adjusting her outfit for the 3rd time, I need you to know I am going to tell them the truth about what happened. What truth? That I was completely out of line with the provider comment. That I disrespected you and our partnership. That everything that happened was my fault. You do not have to do that if you're. They heard my announcement. They need to hear me take it back. At dinner, she waited until we had finished eating and the girls were watching cartoons in the living room. Mom, Dad, I need to apologize for something. She took a deep breath. A month ago, I sat at this table and announced that I was the provider for my family and that it gave me the right to make unilateral decisions. Her parents exchanged glances. They remembered. I was wrong. Completely, embarrassingly wrong. I let my promotion go to my head, and I treated my husband like he was less important because his paycheck was smaller than mine. Her father started to speak, but she held up a hand. Let me finish. When he stopped covering the expenses I had brushed off as insignificant, I found out he was actually responsible for 63% of our household costs. Bills I didn't even think about because they were paid automatically every month. Her mother's eyebrows shot up. 63%? Rent, childcare, your monthly support, our vacation fund, utilities, insurance, streaming services, and a dozen other expenses that kept our lives running smoothly while I focused on the mortgage and groceries. I had no idea, her father said quietly. Neither did I. I thought being a provider meant having authority over fun purchases, but I learned that real providers sacrifice for their families. They lose sleep over bills. They give up what they want so their family has what it needs. She turned to look at me. My husband taught me this lesson by letting me experience what I claimed to want, full financial responsibility for our family, she told them, and I could not handle it. In 3 weeks, I was overdrawn on multiple accounts, crying every night, and begging him to go back to our partnership model. The silence around the table was heavy, but not uncomfortable. They were digesting what she had said. A real partnership is not about who earns more, she continued. It is about both people contributing according to their abilities and making decisions together. I forgot that, and it almost cost me my marriage. Her father cleared his throat. So where do you stand now? I answered this time. We are rebuilding our partnership on a foundation of mutual respect. She will contribute more to our shared expenses because she earns more, but we will make the big decisions together as a team. And our monthly support? Her mother asked, clearly worried. That continues, my wife said firmly. It is a family responsibility, and we manage family responsibilities together. And if she gets promoted again, her father asked me directly, or if your income changes, the percentages might shift, but the principle of partnership remains the same. Neither of us gets authority over the other based on the size of the paycheck. Her mother nodded in approval. That sounds like a mature approach. On the way home, she was quieter than usual. Regrets? I asked. Just one. I regret that it took 3 weeks of financial panic for me to remember what partnership really means. It could have been worse. You could have doubled down and destroyed our marriage out of pride. Is that what you thought would happen? I thought you would realize that wanting authority without accountability is not sustainable. I was hoping you would choose partnership over power. And if I had not, then you would have learned that being a solo provider is a lonely, expensive job. Monday morning, she made coffee for both of us, just as she used to before her promotion went to her head. I transferred the money for the rent payment, she said, handing me my mug. Thank you. I also set up automatic payments for daycare and the support for my parents from my account. It makes sense since I am covering the larger share now. And I canceled the premium gym membership, the expensive car wash, and the organic meal service. Provider sacrifices? Partner priorities. I would rather have a fully funded vacation fund and emergency savings than fancy gym equipment I barely use. That afternoon, she sent me a screenshot of our joint savings account. For the first time in a month, we were building wealth instead of just covering bills. Look what happens when both partners contribute according to their abilities, her message said. 6 months later, she got another promotion. This time, she came home excited to discuss how we should adjust our contributions and what priorities we wanted for our family. More money means more opportunities for us, she said, emphasizing the word us. Any ideas about provider rules? I asked with a smile. Just one. The person who provides has the right to feel good about having taken care of their family. That is the only rule that matters. She had learned that true strength in a marriage is not about establishing dominance over your partner. It is about building something together that neither could create alone. Her promotion had given us more resources, but our partnership was what made those resources meaningful. The woman who had once declared my money, my rules, discovered that the best relationships follow a completely different principle. Our money, our decisions, our future together. Her provider power had been an illusion. Our partnership power was real, and it was strong enough to withstand both her temporary madness and my strategic patience. That is the kind of strength that lasts. Comment. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for someone is letting them experience the weight of their own choices. Setting a boundary is not about punishment. It is about holding up a mirror with respect. True healing begins when we have the courage to look into that mirror and take responsibility for what we see. Your worth is never defined by the amount on a paycheck or a title at work. It is measured by the respect you give and the partnership you build. There are times when you must choose your peace over proving a point in the heat of the moment. Patience can teach a lesson that anger never could. You always have the power to respond with quiet strength instead of loud frustration. Always remember to protect your own dignity while leaving the door open for others to find theirs. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.